Listen up.
Welcome to the PowerShell Podcast, the podcast for PowerShell and the PowerShell community. And now, here's your host, Andrew Plaw.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the PowerShell Podcast. Oh, my goodness. I'm your host, Andrew Plaw. That's at Andrew Plaw Tech. If you want to connect on socials, I post clips from the podcast and some other stuff, PowerShell-y stuff. Check me out there. But that's neither here nor there. You know, we've been dropping episodes every single Monday for like a very long time. I think we're almost at episode 200, which is wild to kind of wrap my head around. But I got a treat for you today. A longtime friend of mine, longtime contributor of the podcast. I actually, back in the day, came up on some of the stuff that this person did. And they were always, since day one, very giving of their time, very passionate about sharing what they've learned with PowerShell with others, like as long as I can remember. I feel like this is one of the people who I'd say is most likely to offer their services if you post a unique problem somewhere. Like I've just always seen it for such a long period of time. Great person. Met him at PowerShell Summit, I think, but I think I knew you online before then. I'm saying a lot of nice things. Microsoft MVP, newly minted, Stevie, Stephen Valdinger, aka Steviecoaster, as I know you and everyone knows you online. Welcome to the podcast. How you doing, man?
Hey. Dude, I'm awesome. Thanks for having me.
Dude, I mean it. You are one of those people who I saw early on and still is just so giving. So it's not even like, it just feels like it's core to what you are. It's not really like an effort thing. It's just what you do. Does that sound about right? Or like, where's that come from?
It is like, I've always been a big people person. And I don't know if you're into like personality tests and things like that, but if you take a DISC test, a DISC test, the S and the C really align with being a people person, and my DISC score is like way high SC. So I just love people. I love helping people, and when I was able to give back to the community in a meaningful way, I was like, I've got to do that, right? It's super important to me. I stood on the shoulders of giants getting to where I was. So I want to do the same thing for the people coming up behind me.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely the right approach to go for. It's rewarding. It helps you learn better. It feels like you're coming full circle. I think we have a lot in common in terms of just like loving the people aspect as well. Because I love the coding things, but I love seeing what code can do for people. And when you teach someone PowerShell, what they can do with their careers and their lives.
Oh, sure. It absolutely is a force multiplier, right? Like you can increase your station at work. You can get promotions. You can get, salary increases. You can do all of those things simply by learning a little bit of PowerShell. And it really is a gateway drug, right? Like PowerShell is a gateway to a lot more. So you can do all kinds of stuff with it and through it. It's great.
Yeah, I think both on the technical side and like a lot of people like you and many other people I talk to, it's not just the technical side. It can introduce you to doing blogs, speaking at conferences, making a network of friends that really enriches your life outside of technology. It's kind of wild what PowerShell can lead people to.
Yeah, exactly. It's some of my best friends today I met through the PowerShell community, but 9 times out of 10, when we're hanging out and we're not talking tech. We're talking about the stuff we do while our computer screens are off. So it's those friendships and those relationships you make along the way that are really meaningful.
Absolutely. Because one thing's guaranteed in this life and in career too, but things that are true for our career are usually true for life. There's going to be ups and downs for sure. You're going to run into some red text in the personal life and in the console, and having a network of people who are going to be there for you is incredibly important. And I think there's a lot of a lack of that in the world at large. So I think it's incredibly important for people to seek that when they can.
Yeah. It's nice to be a positive influence on the world, right? Because if you look at it, it's not a great picture right now, right? Like, so adding positivity where you can is important.
Yeah. And I try and, doing the podcast role, I think, there's going to be some people out there that are like me, and that's cool. They'll probably resonate with the way I see things. There's going to be people who aren't like me too, and that's cool. So I try to make my messaging make sense for all of them. And one thing I've leaned on that I think appeals to all personalities is that when you make the world or community or team you work on at work, when you make it better, you make the environment that you exist in better. So if it makes you feel good to help others, sweet. If it makes you feel good to help yourself and you want an easier life because things are stressful right now, there's nothing wrong with that either. It just makes sense from all perspectives. So I'm trying to have more people buy into that, have more people take off that first risk of like writing that first blog.
Yeah, absolutely. It's okay to be a little bit selfish every once in a while.
Let's go back to you though. Like, so like most of us, you probably started as a regular IT person. And then eventually you found PowerShell and you decided to do some public stuff and some, like, take me back to those days early on in your journey of PowerShell.
Good Lord. It's been such a long time that I've been doing PowerShell. I think my story in getting started with it is very similar to others though, in that Microsoft started to introduce PowerShell into its tools in a way that you could see it when as an alternative. My big place for that was Exchange, right? So when I started managing Exchange, I think it was 2016. I was doing stuff in the console, clicking around, but at the same time, it would give you the equivalent PowerShell command to run. So I started doing that instead, right? Copy and pasting that command into the terminal to do mailbox moves or deletions or whatever it was, right? And so I kind of started there, and that started to scratch an itch that I didn't really know I had. Going through college and eventually dropping out of college, I really hated programming. I honest to God, I did. I didn't get it. Nothing made sense. I didn't enjoy it. But then once I got some real world experience under my belt, and this PowerShell thing came around and I started to copy and paste these commands, I started to see this pattern of, oh, if I take this thing and I run it over and over again with different values, that's a repeatable process, right? That's the start of automation. What else can I do with this PowerShell thing? Can I create a user with it? Can I create a home directory with it? So I went very, very quickly from let's create a mailbox for a user using PowerShell to let's just create the freaking user and let's create the home directory and the mailbox. And all of a sudden I've got this workflow that's automated to where I don't have to click 20 buttons anymore and input a bunch of data that I might get wrong. I can just take a file from HR or some other system and generate that information programmatically and automate that part of my day away so I can focus on something else that matters. So
it's powerful.
At that point, I got bit by the bug. And anything I could do with PowerShell, I did.
Are you envious of people? Are you envious of yourself in those shoes? Because for me, I sort of am. Like that journey of learning PowerShell, learning how to actually be like an IT admin at a higher level because I can actually plug into things and automate. I am sometimes envious of people who are just on the earlier side of that. Maybe they're just getting into PowerShell. They're trying to geek out on a podcast and some other stuff, and it's all clicking. They have not much automation in their environment, so it's like a blank slate. Do you feel jealous of that sometimes?
I don't know that jealous would be the right word. Nostalgic, maybe.
Yeah.
Longing, maybe. Like I miss it sometimes, right? Like there are still moments and times where I'm working on a complex problem or something I've never seen before, and all of a sudden it clicks and I get that aha moment. I miss that aha moment, right? Like that whole journey through the first year and a half, 2 years of learning PowerShell, it was like I was constantly just discovering stuff all the time about the language, about processes, about automation in general. Like there was all this discovery that really shifted the way I approach IT, right? So before I learned PowerShell, I was very much a point click admin. If there wasn't a GUI, I wouldn't do it. And now I don't seek out GUIs. I seek out command line ways to do things. How can I'm very much automation first in my thinking nowadays. And there is so much joy in watching somebody that you're mentoring go through that same process and like have those same discoveries and those same aha moments. I can't explain it. If you haven't done that for somebody, like if you're in an automation journey somewhere, I don't care where you are in it. If there's somebody below you that you know that you could mentor, I strongly encourage you to do that because the rewards of doing it are so great. It is amazing to see somebody that you take under your wing get better and have their life improve because of that getting better. I've had many, many, many friends who have gone from, a junior help desk type role to now a DevOps engineer role somewhere else for a lot more money because they put in the time and effort. And I just love it. I love it so freaking much.
It's a tale as old as time. If you learn PowerShell, it's going to change your career, especially if you don't have any programming language experience. I mean, if you're like super fluent in Python already, you're probably good. But if you're a sysadmin or someone who PowerShell is maybe your first language ever, oh my gosh. And you're right. Maybe it isn't jealousy, but there is something that is a little addictive in seeing other people have that profound experience with PowerShell. And when you see somebody who's like eager, right? They're asking questions and they're earlier in it, what's in store for them. They don't yet because they haven't seen that perspective. Maybe they have hopes and thoughts of like, wow, learning PowerShell would be sick. But until you go through it, you don't know how rewarding the process is. There's so many huge wins that you can get for cheap. And it's only your time, and you can get, change your career, just do so much great stuff. It's slightly addicting for me.
It very much is. It's very much a dopamine generator, right? Like just floods you when it happens.
I won't rant about it too much, but I'll tell the audience that I got a new robot vacuum recently and I love it. I can program it from my phone. It does stuff. And I realized that this is the exact same way I feel about PowerShell. Like each script and each automation you create that runs again, that is like benefits forever. It's hard to measure the impact of something like that, especially like if you do enough of those, all of a sudden your workday doesn't suck. And you can actually see a light at the end of the tunnel for all the work you have to do because you can automate a certain portion of it. I mean, that's incredibly freeing because I think a lot of people feel very locked into their roles. They wouldn't know how to implement changes if they wanted to. They kind of go with the status quo. But when you tap into a community like PowerShell, all of a sudden you might have friends who work at orgs that do things by best practices. That can be a confidence booster for you to take this internally and share, hey, I got these PowerShell skills. I think we could use some improvements in the way we handle X, Y, or Z. And all of a sudden you're like driving big change in your organization. And all it started with was like you trying to make your job a little bit easier with PowerShell.
Yeah, 100%, right? And it could be a simple little thing that makes a big difference, right? I'm trying to think of a really good quick example. Maybe something like, hey, we can kick the can down the road and upgrading our SAN because we need more storage by writing a script that just cleans it up on a schedule so that we're scrubbing, hundreds of gigabytes of data or maybe a couple of terabytes of data or whatever it is every once in a while off of this thing. That's going to potentially save us money, right? Or maybe we can not do this really big fancy backup solution that we were looking at. We can have some scripting and kind of a homegrown type solution.
Save some money.
Or, marry the two together. Some scripting, maybe something a little bit cheaper, but you can augment it with some scripting. Like there's ways that you can use your knowledge to really save the company some money, right? And
absolutely,
maybe they'll throw some of that savings in your pocket as a thank you.
That's the goal. And I think that's one of the things you may be able to work on as part of this. Hey, you're adding more value at work. Well, it's time to start learning maybe how to talk to your manager about what that looks like in the future.
A bargaining chip. Yeah,
exactly.
100%.
Showing that 100%. Work.
Yep. Bring receipts.
Absolutely. No, that's the way to do it. I think you mentioned earlier, like the new user setup. I think there's probably a lot of people that may not have any new user automation and they kind of just manually do it. It's like an hour. It's just accepted as what they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's such a great spot to be in some ways, right? Yeah. It's such a great, you can create a script that adds an incredible amount of value, potentially forever. And it's there for you. There's an opportunity right there. Such an easy win and such an impact. I mean, it's not easy. Let's be honest. It's not super easy relative to other things and how much value you get from it. and how many people in the community have experience with this and would be able to offer some insight, it's pretty incredible. If you put that on the resume at your year-end review or whatever, that's a big impact on the business, in my opinion,
Right.
especially if you reflect the hours saved.
Yeah. 100%. Especially, it's a little bit of a fine line that you have to play with too, right? Because you can take automation a little bit too far. But if you can put down in like a yearly review or whatever that you saved HR 20 hours a week by taking away, part of their new hire setup. Maybe it's a manufacturing plant with a high turnover rate on the shop floor or something like that. So they're constantly having to offboard employees and onboard new employees. If you can help them to reduce the amount of work they have to do by maybe just emailing a file or dropping a file somewhere, that's going to be noticeable, not only by your manager, but by theirs as well.
Yep.
But the fine line is taking that too far to where they don't have to do anything anymore, right? Like,
yep.
There's always that risk that you're going to code somebody out of a job, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? But it's something you're probably going to wrestle with the first time it happens. You're like, oh my God, I just cost somebody. Yeah, but
hopefully there's other stuff they can do. But
exactly.
Yeah, and once you do that enough, because it's kind of guaranteed. So people who've never done it before, they've never done that first big project. But I'll tell you, on the other side of that first big project is a second impactful project using the skills you learned in the first one. Now it's a little bit easier. And then what comes after that? Maybe a third use case. It doesn't have to be as big as the first. It can be whatever. You do that enough times, you build confidence in how you can solve problems in a solutions-oriented way that will solve it forever. And guess what? Your team and your boss has seen this enough times where they have confidence in you to solve different things. And that can maybe be used to justify more time that you spend coding PowerShell during your workday because you've proven the value. You can 100%. Carve out your little, the future of your career and a way better work environment for yourself. If you're adding value like that, I mean, I think for a lot of managers, it would be kind of a no-brainer to not let somebody thrive in that way.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's also an aspect of it being a natural progression to potentially wanting to share in some way, right? Like if you are doing good at work in that you're automating processes, you're solving problems, you're moving up in your career, you're making more money, you've got a better title, you're not going to want to sit on that, right? You're going to want to tell somebody something, right? You might tell your family or your significant other about the title change or the wage increase or whatever, but you might want to tell your peers how you solve the problem. And that can take a bunch of forms, right? You can blog about it. You can get super active. Maybe you've done something with a piece of software with PowerShell that is super useful to that user base. So you share in their forums about what you're working on and what you're doing. So you're sharing that way. And if you're a people person, like I am, you might be okay with standing in front of a room of people and telling them about that thing, right? So conference speaking now becomes a thing. And depending on how you sell it to your company, maybe they'll even pay for you to go, right? And that's, again, another skill that you'll pick up along the way, how to sell your skills and presenting that information to help you make the argument for your company to send you places and do it.
Which I think for many people is like way out of like something they'd think, at least for me, when I was in those shoes of never having done it before, I thought, what? This is not really possible for like a normal person to just go about their career and like end up here. You have to be like a genius. Trust me, I know a lot of them, and myself, I'm not a genius. Almost everybody who I talk to on this podcast is not what I'd consider a genius. Yeah. Like we're all good at different things, but a lot of us have spent a crap ton of time learning PowerShell. So like it makes sense why we know it quite well. Some people more than others. And, there's the whole natural aptitude that works its way in there. But I think that you bring up a great point though, which is, and this is something that I struggled with, and I think I did this the wrong way early on, which was you go from having not really, really great skills. Maybe you know how AD works. So you can like use like different tools to manage it. Okay, that's cool. But then you start learning PowerShell and you're like, whoa, I can automate things. And if you were like me and you sort of fantasized and thought that the people who were doing PowerShell were too good or like, beyond you, then all of a sudden you have these skills. At first, for me at least, I was like, whoa, maybe I'm a genius too. And so I didn't share that knowledge with others. And then I realized that the real secret is to share that knowledge. And I started with my team because I didn't want to write all the scripts forever. And that's the situation you might find yourself in. You need to find other people who are helpful. So maybe you've ran into this situation. And I think this is a great, the reason why open source is so helpful is that one person maintaining everything isn't scalable. Where like internally, you need to, if you're the only one who knows PowerShell, at some point you may be making tools for other people on your team. Maybe your help desk, maybe something like that. And to consume those tools, it may be helpful if they learn PowerShell. And you're in a fantastic position to create that. And I think it's important, and I needed to remind myself, is that there is enough PowerShell to go around. You don't need to be you don't want to be in the spot where you're the only one who's passionate about PowerShell. It's way more fun to share that with someone else. And what you can accomplish is way more. I went through that experience. If you check out the podcast, Graham Stringfellow, I think you know Graham. He was someone who I went through that experience with, where we hired him early on. I was just using our help desk to free me up to write more code all by myself. And I wasn't spending any time training them up. And then I realized like, I can't write new code because I got to maintain all this other stuff. So a great experience. You start an internal PowerShell group with a couple people. You need like one champion, and then you can build them up and get way more done. It's just the right approach for me.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, right? If you get super into PowerShell and you're the only person on the team doing it, but you write it and you get buy-in for people to start using it and consuming it, you're just making tech debt for yourself, right? Like you're going to have to maintain that stuff moving forward. People are going to want new things because they know you can make them. But the stuff that you've already made, they might come to you and be like, hey, can this thing do this? Or, hey, this thing doesn't work when I do this, right? So now you're not only writing the new thing, you're adding a feature to the old thing or fixing a bug in the old thing, and it's still just you. So
lonely.
Being able to bring somebody else up to speed is super important. And I know that is super difficult if you're in a small organization.
Absolutely.
And you might be an IT team of one. I've been there before. So you have to be conscious of your own time and your own limits, right? And I am the worst at this. I am the world's worst person at this, saying no.
Yep. Me too.
You have to get better at it. Like I struggle with this all the time. If you worked where I work and you worked with me, and everybody will tell you that, hey, if you just go ask Stevie, he'll help you. He'll do it. And I blame that partially on my love of people and wanting to be helpful. I'm very self-deprecating or self.
No,
I don't even know the term.
I think that makes sense. Self-deprecating. I found myself doing that too. So we talked. I mentioned writing tools for your team and how sometimes wrapping them up a certain way can be helpful. And the main topic, I mean, we geeked out about some stuff that means a lot to us. And I hope that it inspires those of you who are early in your journey to look forward to what you have in store. And those who are maybe a little bit more accomplished, maybe you've written a couple scripts, to maybe start mentoring in some way or finding other buy-in in your organization so you're not the sole PowerSheller. But in doing that, something that I always recommend people to do in really any aspect of IT, they're going to say this: you need a lab environment, whether that's for work, which if you're in a smaller shop, good luck getting a proper lab environment. You should. Are they going to do it? Good luck. But for you personally, you need to have a safe place to develop skills. If you're early on, you might be afraid of like writing PowerShell. Oh, we don't ever make changes. I can't mess with AD, whatever. That's fine. You can develop these skills on your own, gain that confidence on your test machine. You have to invest in your career, and it pays back. But do you have any solutions? I think you might know a thing or two about labs, maybe automating them. Can you speak to any solutions in the space? I don't know.
He's kind of already giving it away, right? Like the best thing, or what I think is one of the best things, is AutomatedLab. It's literally called that, right? There are other solutions out there, obviously, depending on your use case or whatever. But for standard workloads of, I need a server, I need a VM, maybe a server and a client, maybe a couple servers and a couple clients, like whatever. If you need something that's flexible to allow you to build whatever the infrastructure requirements are that you need, AutomatedLab is, in my opinion, the best thing out there for you to be able to do that work.
Now, I completely agree. It's pretty simple too, but you've actually made it even simpler, which we'll get to here shortly. But I will say that there is a limitation. So if you are newer in IT, you can't do it on your work computer, perhaps. I think you do need to have Windows like Pro. I don't think it works on the home editions. So just a little note out there for people, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is just a PowerShell module, but it
uses Hyper-V, right?
But by default, it uses Hyper-V. You can build out labs in Azure.
Nice.
So if you've got an Azure subscription, you can write a recipe that will build out all of the networking and VM infrastructure and everything in Azure. So Hyper-V isn't a super hard requirement anymore. And AutomatedLab is now cross-platform. So you can run it on a Mac if you want to. The only limitation there is obviously you can't do anything with Hyper-V.
Yeah.
Because it's a Mac, right? But if you're just using AutomatedLab with Azure, you can run it anywhere. You can run it on Windows, you can run it on Linux, you can run it on Mac OS, and it'll work. Because PowerShell is where it's at today, and the Azure stuff is all cross-plat.
So what is like a common use case? Like, are people just creating like servers, like an AD setup, or they're like hybrid? Can we create Azure things?
It could be. And honestly, the use cases are so vast. I'll just talk about kind of what I do with it, and that might give people some ideas for what they can do with it as well in their own environment. So I work for Chocolatey. So what we produce a quick start environment that is a single VM that's got all of the pieces and parts necessary to be super successful with Chocolatey for Business in your organization. It's a turnkey solution, pretty much. You can run one script and it goes out and it builds everything for you. And then you can just use it, right? Super, super quick. When we're developing that environment or testing something, or I need to replicate something that's an issue for a customer, I use AutomatedLab to spin up that environment in a super quick way, right? Like I've got a bunch of tooling and stuff that I've written around AutomatedLab that all I have to do is say start lab, quick start environment. And if it doesn't exist already, it just builds it real quick. And if it does exist, it just turns it on. So that sort of stuff is what I use it for. But you might be investigating a new piece of software for your organization or a new tool that you're trying to deploy out to your organization, and you don't have maybe testing infrastructure in your data center, right? Or your local server room or whatever you've got. Maybe the only thing you can test on is production, which is true for a whole host of people. But you've got a pretty decent laptop that you use for work, right? And it runs Windows, it runs Mac, and you've got an Azure subscription, whatever. Let's say you run Windows and you have the ability to install Hyper-V on it. Perfect. Enter AutomatedLab. You want to test this new piece of software or new tool or whatever in more or less a walled garden, right? You want to test it in such a way that if something breaks or if you touch something wrong, the world's not going to come crashing down on your head. You can do that with AutomatedLab. It is so flexible. And the nice thing about AutomatedLab is it's all PowerShell. Under the hood, It's all PowerShell. It's just a module. So this whole learn PowerShell thing that we've been talking about for the past half hour or so seamlessly integrates with it, right? It's the exact same thing. And AutomatedLab is super, super powerful. There's so much you can do with it. It's super extensible.
So you just kind of like import the module and just run some commands, and it sort of configures your environment how you specify. That's the TLDR, basically?
Yeah, TLDR.
Sweet.
What VM do you want? What networking do you want?
And you probably need a lab anyways. So here's an excuse to kind of learn PowerShell stuff and get a lab where you can learn more and explore things outside of PowerShell too. Yeah. Which is really awesome.
Yeah.
But
100%.
You've taken this a step further. So you're using this a lot. And to be honest, check out PowerShell Wednesday. You're a GUI guy. I love a GUI guy. That's GUI, not GOOEY. Just a heads up for everybody out there. But you're a GUI guy. You actually presented at PowerShell Wednesday on WinUI Shell, but not using WinUI Shell. You've actually done some graphical work on this. Can you expound on how you've chosen to implement a graphical interface for this?
Yeah. So I want to try and set the stage appropriately, right? So we'll kind of go chronologically through my thought process.
Yeah.
I discovered AutomatedLab and I started using it, and I saw a lot of value in it, and I wanted my team to be able to use it effectively. Not all of my team are super well versed in PowerShell. We all know PowerShell, but we're all at different levels of PowerShell. So I went and I built a wrapper module around AutomatedLab that allows me to define labs basically, in that I've got a recipe. This is the PowerShell script that when I run it, it builds out all the infrastructure. And then I have some control commands that I've built for starting that lab, stopping that lab, destroying that lab, getting information about that lab, etc. That was a module that I've called AutomatedLab.utils that allows me to have that control, right? Once I've written a lab, I can then share that lab with others, and they can import that lab and then maintain or manage that lab on their system. The natural progression of that was I want somebody who doesn't use PowerShell at all to be able to build a lab. So using PowerShell Universal from Iron Man Software, shout out to my buddy Adam Driscoll.
Shout out.
PowerShell Universal is this amazing web-based platform that allows you to build dashboards and pages and API points and all of this stuff in pure PowerShell. So writing PowerShell, I've developed this web application called AutomatedLab UI, which gives me that same functionality that I've written in AutomatedLab utils of starting labs and stopping labs, but also a wizard for defining labs as well. So you can now, there's a wizard where you can walk through and say, I want this VM, and it needs to be this operating system. It needs to have this many CPU cores and this much RAM, and it needs to have this networking. It's very early days, but there's rough support for like custom roles and things like that in it, which is another aspect of AutomatedLab. Depends on how in the weeds we want to get with things. But basically, with no PowerShell knowledge at all, you can now just hit a website and define a lab with the number of VMs, like whatever you need, right? And then you can manage that lab. You can go to the Manage tab. You can say Start, and it'll start everything. You can say Stop, and it'll shut everything down. And it works pretty well, right? It's decent. It's still super early days and still riddled with bugs. And there's still a lot of work to do, but it's really, really cool, right? Like this is a really approachable way
absolutely
to manage a lab environment. And to my knowledge, there's nothing free out there that does the same thing. So
I don't think so either. Not that I know of, at least.
I don't know of anything that doesn't cost money that would do the same thing that you can build out locally on your machine.
Yeah, and like share.
Yeah,
That's pretty powerful.
yeah, it's super cool. It's been a lot of fun to build it, and I think there's a lot of interest in it. It's got some pretty decent traffic since I've been talking about it online. So if you're just hearing about it for the first time and you want to check it out and you want to help, please do. Like, I'm only one person and this is a huge project. So if you
Link
want to
in the
help
show
out with
notes.
it, let me know. Yeah.
Yep.
There you go. More than willing to accept contributions. And I've actually got some pretty good contributions from a guy named Constantine, who has been helping me out.
Hager?
With the role stuff. He's put in quite a bit. I've got one PR from him right now that I'm in the middle of reviewing. I think I'm going to pull it in, but it's going to lead to more work after it gets pulled in. But
make him do it. Assign the issue to him. Accept the PR file issue. Assign.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And I'm having him. I'm having him on the podcast in the next couple of weeks, so we can guilt him into it, right? Guilt him into doing the work. You know,
exactly.
We said it on a podcast. You kind of have to do it now.
Yeah,
right?
Now you have to, man. I just put you on the spot. Sorry.
Let's talk about GUIs, though. When did you first discover GUIs? Because frankly, it's a topic I love. I love seeing the code.
It's been
like PowerShell Studio.
A while. Yeah. I think
did you have it, or just in that area you were like a WinForms guy?
I think my first foray into GUIs was PowerShell Studio.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't do like a ton of my own creation of GUIs and stuff because the people that I write for don't need them.
Yeah.
But they're super, super valuable. So I like providing content around them. Right. I like talking about them and making people aware that these tool sets exist, that this stuff exists, that you can create GUIs around the scripts that you're writing so that maybe people on your team that aren't super into running console-based applications have a way to use your stuff. Right. It just makes whatever you're doing more accessible to people that may or may not need to use it. It's just another arrow in your quiver, really.
For me, I mean, GUIs definitely have their use case. Whenever I'm talking to like this audience where people might be beginners, I think the main value in a GUI is that it is you can see the results of what you do very quickly. It's very rewarding in that sense. And what I've found is I've made a couple GUIs early on where I learned how the GUI works. I never used it again. I used it for 2 weeks and moved on because I'm not a point and click admin. Other people have used it. Like, it's really cool when you can create some kind of tool that maybe somebody in a different department who's not in IT can run. It's really cool to make that portable. All of a sudden, your skills aren't just like AD and technical stuff. It's like, no, you can help like finance people with their workflows and automating this and that and querying data. Makes it easier to get those. At least getting people to send you to conferences. It can help justify that.
Yeah, it does for sure. And there are a bunch of benefits to doing things like in a GUI form as well, in terms of like validation and things like that, right? Like in a GUI form, if I don't have a text field filled out the way I need it to be filled out, or I've missed one or something like that, you can change the GUI, right? Like, you can highlight the text box, or you can put red text underneath it that says, hey, this is required, whatever. That immediate validation is something that doesn't happen in a console until you hit enter, if you're running a script or something like that. And also, red text in a console looks scary. Right?
Absolutely.
It does. Red text in a console scares the crap out of you. Red text underneath a text box on a form, that's not super scary, right? Typically, that just means, oh, hey, this is missing, or, oh, hey, this isn't a string, it's a number, or whatever, right? So there's all these like usability things that make developing the GUI important.
Absolutely. And I think people may not have heard of PowerShell Universal. It is you have to know that it exists. If you have any PowerShell skills at all, you have to know the PowerShell Universal exists, and it's there for you if you need it. What would you like in your mind? What are some good use cases where someone could use PowerShell Universal?
PowerShell Universal as a platform is crazy good at automating processes, right? If you've got a script that you've written, let's use the example of the new user creation that we've talked about previously. If you take that script and you plug it into the automation platform inside of PowerShell Universal, and then within PowerShell Universal, you just simply go in and create a page based off of that script. PowerShell Universal will be able to automatically give you a form to fill out with all the from that script. Now you've got a web page that you can deliver the link to an HR person and say, hey, go to this website and fill this information out and hit submit. And you're done. That new user gets created. So stuff like that is where PowerShell Universal becomes immediately valuable. And doing something like that in PowerShell Universal isn't going to cost you any money. You can do that with the free version of PowerShell Universal. Now, should you give Adam $500 a year for a server or $1,000 a year for a server, or whatever it is? Absolutely, you should, because it's worth way more than that in terms of what you can do with it and how much time and effort it's going to save you. But it's just stupid powerful.
Very adaptable.
It really is. It is. It is. And the way that things interact with each other, you can build an app or a dashboard, as they used to be called, but now they're called PowerShell Universal apps, which are web apps, which may be one page, it may be 30 pages that you write, and they all work together. You can write API endpoints that maybe go out and send and receive data from other systems within your organization, but you've got a web app that does a GET request to that API endpoint to visualize all the data, right? So you're able to interrupt automation, APIs, apps all together in one platform, and it's all written in PowerShell. You can write an API endpoint in pure PowerShell. You can write a web app in pure freaking PowerShell. It's insanely powerful, and it's so much fun. It's got a pretty decent learning curve, to be fair, because there's just so much you can do with it. But if you take the time and you invest in it, it's so freaking good. It's so good.
It is really great. It's very adaptable. It makes you look like a genius, to be honest. Easy. You write a couple of bits of code, you get like fancy JavaScript. I mean, kind of a win-win. You mentioned something that I think is so critical for people who are trying to leverage their skills outside of IT and even within just IT, but that is forms. Having some way for people to easily input data, you consume it, you run PowerShell, they get result, no ticket. Or maybe they open up the ticket and it gives them the form, that kind of thing. But you need some mechanism for that. It could be PowerShell Universal. Maybe your ticketing system has some sort of equivalent or something, but you need some way to capture that data and run automations, because you can't just automatically know everything all the time. Some things are ad hoc.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. PowerShell Universal is not the only thing out there that does this type of stuff, right? And there are other systems that you can use that maybe aren't PowerShell related that can do the same type of thing, right? Like, I'm a firm believer that if you start with PowerShell Universal and you develop your forms inside of there, and you're writing pure PowerShell to do that, you're at the same time learning a bunch of concepts that you can take to other things. So all of a sudden you've got an understanding of UX and user experience and design, right? How do I make this look pretty in a way that's user friendly, that is visually appealing to the user, that flows properly, etc. You learn how to display errors better. you learn data validation, you learn all of these things, and you're still just writing PowerShell inside of this tool to be able to do that. And then a year down the road, 2 years down the road, you see a job opening for somewhere that uses ServiceNow. And inside of ServiceNow, they're looking for somebody who can create workflows and things like this inside of this tool. It's not PowerShell, right? But all the stuff that you were doing to write PowerShell is applicable and it transfers. So again, we get back to the beginning of the conversation where we were talking about PowerShell being a force multiplier. It is. Right. Absolutely. There it is.
Any way you slice it, it really is.
Yeah.
There's one other thing I want to talk to you about. And it's what you talked about at PowerShell Wednesday, and that's WinUI Shell.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of a different approach to a GUI compared to something like PowerShell Universal, where it's more like a web interface kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Can you give me a little bit of info about WinUI Shell? Because I'm passionate about it. I love it. I'm so glad I have somebody else who's actually ran the code and seen the light, you know?
Yeah. So I kind of nerded out on WinUI Shell when I first found it, right? Because it's the standalone thing that I've wanted to make standalone graphical PowerShell apps forever. Like it's amazing. What it is basically a wrapper around the WinUI app development toolkit thing.
Yeah, whatever. The fancy new Microsoft thing that makes GUIs look modern. Whatever modern is.
Yeah, the modern. Yeah, it's the modern app UI. Like click start and go to settings. It's that thing, right? That's a modern
transparent. App. It looks fancy. Yeah, all that good stuff.
You know, it's got light theme. It's got dark theme. It can follow your system. Like it does all that stuff. It's got all these pretty buttons and drop downs and controls that you can use. WinUI Shell is a wrapper around that, allowing you to bring all of those tools into PowerShell that you can write the PowerShell script is basically a canvas at that point, right? And you just start painting on the canvas. You add text boxes, you add check boxes, you add progress bars or progress rings, like buttons, all this stuff. You just start adding it to this canvas and moving it around and, you know, adding padding and spacing between things, animations, like all this stuff. And all of a sudden, you've got this PowerShell script that used to be just a script, and now you can start adding UI components to it and making it work. It works the same way, but instead of, you know, running a script with a bunch of parameters that you have to enter, you just run a script that pops a GUI up and you fill it out. It
runs locally.
Yeah, it's all self-contained. It's just a PowerShell script. The only requirement being you install the WinUI Shell module onto the system where you're going to be running the script. But again, since it's just a PowerShell script, you could have the PowerShell script like bootstrap all that stuff as a first step. So you could have, you know, the bootstrap code that goes out and installs the module, sets it all up, everything like that, then dot sources it into the session or imports it into the session, and then you load your form after that. So it can be a single self-contained unit of work to create that GUI application. I think WinUI Shell is kind of advanced for somebody that's new to PowerShell.
You have to learn a whole other level of like how to do it.
Yeah, because there's WinUI Shell isn't a verb noun PowerShell experience, right? It is a framework. It wraps a bunch of .NET classes. So you're going to have to get really, really comfortable with accessing .NET stuff directly in PowerShell with the, you know, square brackets, class name, double colon method, like all of that stuff. You're going to have to get really good. What I would like to see, and I'm happy to help somebody, again, this is me, I say yes to freaking everything. If somebody were to want to make a wrapper around WinUI Shell, maybe the way that I wrote AutomatedLab.utils, maybe WinUI Shell.utils, that takes and builds new new UI text box.
A GUI to make GUIs.
Yeah. It wouldn't be a GUI to make GUI. It would just be
A script,
a PowerShell module that gives you that verb noun interface.
New window, new progress
Exactly.
bar. Yeah.
Exactly. Uh, I think WinUI Shell, the module, is great as a framework, and it is begging for somebody to come in behind it and make tooling around it.
Yeah.
We could have that UI or that utils module that gives you that verb noun commandlet syntax. We could have another module that gives you a DSL or a domain specific language. So much like you write a pester test, you can define a UI.
I like that.
So, yeah, all kinds of stuff that could be done here. But WinUI Shell it's freaking great, man.
It is absolutely
so cool.
And I think
they keep adding stuff to it.
Shout out MDGRS for that one. I think there is a use case though where like it is kind of confusing. It is a level above if you're not very comfortable with PowerShell.
Sure.
It may not be worth spending the time. I will say though, look at the examples. There's a decent chance if all you're doing is pressing run on a script, you can use one of the pre-built things, put your little code in the add click little field, script block.
Yeah.
And if it's just you just run your one script. For more advanced things, you're going to have to go outside of that. But I think that most GUIs that someone in PowerShell would want to share is just like a click, or maybe some inputs and then a click.
Yeah. The vast majority of use cases are already supported, and the examples that are on the repository will get you started, and you would be able to modify them for sure. They're well documented examples. They're easy to follow. There's comments around every component that tells you what it's doing. And if you have a question, just ask it on the repository. They'll answer you.
Yep, absolutely. Well, man, we kind of geeked out on PowerShell. There's some other stuff I want to talk about. We may need to save it for an episode in the future. But man, what a pleasure sharing our passion for community, people, PowerShell. Hopefully we've inspired some folks to get geared up for that journey in front of them. Maybe there are some easy wins with PowerShell Universal or WinUI Shell along the way. And even if they're not huge wins for the work, they are just so much fun. You have to do it once. Come on, have some fun.
Yeah. Nothing bad's going to happen. Don't be afraid to play around and explore. Like it will be fine, and it will be worth it. I guarantee you it's worth it.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, Stevie, people have enjoyed the pod. They're like, whoa, the Stevie guy, he's so nice. Where can we find you on the World Wide Web if we want to connect? Maybe they want to ask questions like, yo, WinUI Shell's cool, but what about this?
Right. So at Steviecoaster, pretty much everywhere online. My Blue Sky handle was actually steviecoaster.dev. Steviecoaster.dev being my blog. I every once in a while have blog posts that I put out. I'm not super prolific at writing on my blog, but every once in a while I'll get a spark of inspiration, and then I'll put out like 3 or 4 blog posts really quickly in a row, and then it'll go dormant for a while. But at steviecoaster.dev on Blue Sky, at Steviecoaster everywhere else.
Simple. Links in the show notes as well. If you want to click around, you don't want to type, check out the show notes. Stevie, did you know that every single Wednesday we have PowerShell Wednesday? And in fact, you have joined it. Many have joined it. We've actually taken a turn with it recently where I'm kind of making it more of like a little bit less official, a little bit more of like a stream. We still cover great content, but my goal is like, since a lot of people are at lunch, primary goal, good vibes. Secondary goal, make you feel confident, like you can do things. Third goal, we're going to teach you some stuff. But I think most people, at least me, I was stuck in this boat for a long time, and people I talk to are too, where you know what you have to do, but for whatever reason, you don't take those steps. And I'm trying to break it down, show you, like today, I don't know if you saw, but we were struggling with some stuff. I was learning things for the first time, and I've done a lot of text manipulation. But it's just, humanizing it and showing people that like, you can answer all your questions. You just got to get going. You got to FAFO, mess around a little bit and find out. And the PowerShell is meant for that. Yeah,
100%. It's very forgiving. It really is. Nothing to be scared of. One of the big things that I like to teach people as they're first getting started is use the what if parameter. It's like your get out of jail free card, man. Like if you add that what if parameter to a remove item call, the file is not going to get deleted, or the thing is not going to get deleted. It's going to tell you what would get deleted if the action happened, but it's not going to actually touch that file or folder or whatever. So don't be afraid to explore with PowerShell. Use the what if parameter, ask questions, learn from the red text. Because I've been doing PowerShell for a really, really long time. I still get red text every single day.
Yep.
All the time. We're all humans. We're all fallible.
And if you're on Windows PowerShell, when you get that red text, you get a boom, you get a full description of everything you've ever done in your life. But the actual error is like one little line at the top.
Yeah.
So It can look way more daunting than it actually is. And sometimes if you read that first line, it'll just tell you there's like an extra period, or like your quote isn't finished, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, exactly. Embrace the red text. It's there for a reason. It's typically just trying to be helpful.
Yep. Sometimes I find the APIs sometimes maybe don't give the most helpful responses, but
right. Yeah. It definitely depends on what .NET classes you're using, or what API or whatever. Yeah, for sure. Great
recommendation. All right. You got one piece of advice. They've ran commands, they've ran gate80 user, they know about the properties. Maybe they've done some select object. What's one piece of advice you have for someone who's just getting started with PowerShell?
Don't be afraid to ask for help. Seek out people that have more knowledge in the thing that you're doing than you. Become a sponge. If you're just getting started with PowerShell, become a sponge. Learn everything you can from anybody you can.
Yeah, and I think one challenge
matters.
Absolutely. And sharing that beginner perspective matters. But I find people who have the most success early on are those who ask questions. And I love seeing beginners ask questions. And I know as soon as I see that from someone, the likelihood of them being successful with PowerShell is out of this world. It's just so many people, myself included, get stuck in the trap of like, oh, I could just try it harder, longer, later. You get busy, you don't do it, you never end up getting to it, you don't learn anything. If you spent time trying things to the best of your abilities, share what you've tried, share what you're trying to accomplish, share some redacted screenshots, and get it going. You have to have those wins. You can't create a standard of, I'm going to go solve a problem and always leave it. You gotta see some of these through.
Yep. Be curious.
And enjoy the experience. And don't forget, you remember how excited Steve and I were to talk about helping others and like that beginner PowerShell thing? Well, when you're a beginner and you ask a question, you are rewarding those people like Steve and I who love seeing this stuff. If you don't, you're robbing us of that experience. Not to say but we would benefit from that. You would benefit from that. Get to it. There's nothing to it but to do it, Steviecoaster.
Yeah, 100%. The joy you get from running the thing and it working because you asked the question is the same joy we feel from you asking the question.
It's like that robot vacuum, man. All these different people are like their own robot vacuums cleaning the world, and you got to let us know about what you're cleaning.
Yeah, exactly. Just complete the circle, guys. Complete the circle.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Stevie, so much for joining us. Links to your stuff is below. Join us every single Wednesday for PowerShell Wednesday. New podcasts of the PowerShell podcast come out every single Monday. We got it going on. If you're in PowerShell, you're listening to this, take your next step, whatever that is. If that's starting an internal group, awesome. If that's reaching out to the community and posting something somewhere, sweet. Check us out on the PDQ Discord, discord.gg/PDQ, the PowerShell scripting channel. A lot of fun stuff going on there. Shout out to Halcon de Peters, kind of an interesting name, who asked a great question about something they were trying to do with Get80 user and creating a report and filtering on things. And awesome question. It's something a lot of people have done. By asking it, he's getting some help, and it's going to be better for it. And you can learn from that as well. Steviecoaster, it was a pleasure, my friend. Until next time.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, take care.
I'm sure I'll see you in Seattle next year, or Redmond.
Yes.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Take care, Stevie. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the PowerShell Podcast. The PowerShell Podcast is a PDQ production, making device management simple, secure, and pretty damn quick.